I am just concluding my course on 21st century learning, and it's been a wonderful experience. During the course, I've been exposed to some new uses of technology that I wouldn't have had the initiative to try on my own without a little pushing. During the first module of the course, we were working in Moodle. Moodle was a format that seemed familiar to me because I'm used to working in Blackboard or eCollege as I've developed online courses of my own. Moodle seemed very similar. There were some differences that I first noticed as we began, but those differences really have diminished in my eyes, and I could see that Moodle itself would be a very good tool for educators here in our district to use with their classes or even with their groups or their clubs. You could develop plans and give students access to those plans through the Moodle format. So I think just the Moodle itself was a great experience. One of the first activities we had to do in the first module, though, was to make an introduction on a video and post it to YouTube. That first introduction was pretty nerve-wracking for me because I didn't like the idea of my face being out on YouTube, and here we are once again making a video, and this one will also go out on YouTube. So that part in itself still makes me a little uneasy, but I can see the use of making a podcast and giving access to parents and students to be a very, very, very useful tool. I plan to do some podcasts for my high school students to transfer the responsibilities that they have right now of coming to see me so often. I thought if I could make some webcasts and post them so that they could have easy access to them through our guidance website, that would transfer some of their responsibilities so they wouldn't have to come see me, but they could instead click on the website and get the same information presented to them again without them feeling like they were bugging me or trying to take time out from their classes when they didn't have time. Because you could do this from home. I think it would be a very, very, very good use for them. During the second module, we we had the chance to explore social medias and social networking. I had always kind of been critical of the use of Facebook, and now I understand it better. One of the articles that we read or videos that we watched was actually about the anthropological view of YouTube. And I think that was very meaningful to me because it made me look at the use of technology in a totally different way, to see it as more of a connection, a way of connecting for people that have become increasingly isolated, partly due to technology and their use of technology, but now the technology itself was giving them a way to communicate and connect with each other. So that view, that anthropological view, really made some sense to me. In fact, I wound up starting a little bit of an argument among some of my older friends who are retired from teaching. They too, I think in the older generation, your first thought is to be critical of anything new, and technology being isolating is one of the things that we were talking about. And then when I tried to make this new connection for them about how it could be a good thing, it actually started a little argument, and those of the group who were using Facebook kind of pitted themselves against those who weren't using Facebook. Now, I still don't have a Facebook account, but I do now understand it better. One of the teachers in my group was a former kindergarten teacher, and she found herself now using Facebook and connecting to her former students who she taught as kindergartners who were now graduating from college, and they were making connections with their old kindergarten teacher and talking about the wonderful experiences that they had and that they still missed in their own lives that they had through the use of that they had during kindergarten, but they were able to talk about it comfortably and make an easy connection with her that they wouldn't have had before. You usually wouldn't take the time to write to a former teacher a letter, but if you see them on Facebook, it was an easy connection for them. So that was just a little personal example of the pluses of some of the new technologies. The third module, we played around with Twitter, and I had also been previously critical of the use of Twitter, although in a personal experience I did wish I had access to Twitter once in my life. At the time that Hurricane Ike struck Galveston Island, Texas, one of the journalists stayed on the island when most of the people had been evacuated. And there was very little information directly from the island other than this journalist. And if I'd had access to Twitter at that time, I would have really followed it closely. Instead, my only access to information was through email. I was following the Galveston news through their local newspaper, the Galveston County Daily News, online. And for a while they were offline because of the hurricane themselves, but they came back up pretty quickly, and that was really my only direct line to any kind of information that was going on in the island was through that email, that online newspaper. If I'd had Twitter, I could have had many more little bits of information directly as they were happening, and I would have really liked that. I was